approve the minutes? All right, so we're going to approve the minutes. Item 3, consent items. We don't have anything this morning that we would like to pull off of consent, so we will go right into general business. Item 4A, victim assistance and victim rights.
You need somebody to share it?
Yeah, Matt is going to.
Oh, okay.
Thanks. Okay.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Batten. I'm the Victim Services Supervisor Coordinator with the Aurora Police Department. So I'm just going to talk obviously about what Victim Services does and victims' rights in general. This is just so I'll just do a 30,000 foot level. Am I allowed to control it from here? Okay. All right, we can just go on to the next slide then. Mindful of time and even next one after that. So right now in the Victim Services Unit, we have 5 full-time advocates, myself as a supervisor and a victim advocate technician. We do not refer to her as our admin because she reviews every single police report that has a victim listed, and then she assigns it to advocates for follow-up. We also have 2 masters in social work interns and about 10 volunteers, and we are trying to build up our volunteer corps again. So if y'all know anybody that would like to volunteer, please send them my way. Next slide, please. So what we do in a nutshell is we respond out to calls for service from patrol or command level or the chief's office to, homicides, child deaths, domestic violence, sexual violence, anything that's covered by the Victims' Rights Act in Colorado. We're very fortunate that the Colorado Constitution and CRS, we have a very robust Victims' Rights Act. Other states do not have as strong as we do, so we're fortunate to have that. And then we can also be called out at request of the forensic nurses at University Hospital. We have a strong partnership with them as well. So what that looks like is responding to scenes, hospitals, residences, businesses. We can certainly go to headquarters for more critical incidents, that kind of thing. And then we just do like a needs assessment with victims. Do they need safety? Do they need other financial assistance? Do they need a phone? Do they need to be relocated? These kind of things. And there's one of us on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, doesn't matter. We will go out with patrol. We never can respond by ourselves to things, obviously for safety reasons. Next slide, please. Like I said, one of us on call all the time. COVID did teach us that some people actually prefer phone response. If it is 3 o'clock in the morning, some folks don't want another stranger in their house. So we will meet the victim where they're at in terms of if they're preferring phone response or in person. We're also doing suicides right now, even though they're not technically a crime, but just given the level of trauma that corresponds to that. Any questions so far? Next slide, please. I can just go through these super quickly. I only have 15 minutes, so me, obviously, thank you. Most of the staff did start as volunteers, so right? I know, seriously. Thank you. So Ariel is our admin. Kay Robinson started as an intern and then came back to us as staff. You can continue. Some animation there.
It's on a.
Interesting. Okay. Fair enough. Gotcha. All right. So Melanie Gross is down at District 3. There is an advocate at every district. Carolyn has a master's in social work, so she also supervises our master's in social work interns. And she also started as an intern. Go ahead. Thank you. And then Rebecca came to us from Denver. We're super fortunate to have her. Continue. And meanwhile, I will say that even though Denver has a higher crime rate than we do, we have more calls in the police department. We're one of the busiest units in the entire state. And then Monica just joined us 2 months ago. I'm sorry? Oh, well, that's weird. No, that's okay. I can just go into what's. Okay, no worries, no worries. So, our stats over the last couple of years have shifted a bit. Generally speaking, about 25% of our callouts in cases are domestic violence related. Last year, for the first time ever, our homicide contacts made up almost 10% of our contacts, and that was because we had a record number of homicides, as many as you know. So yes, like I said, we're super busy as far as callouts, probably one of the busiest units in the department as far as callouts go. Because we average anywhere from 1,400 to 1,600 callouts a year, which is substantial as you can imagine. And like I said, even though DPD has higher crime rates than we do, we generally surpass them in not only victim contacts, but also callouts. All right, moving right along. So we have ranged in the last several years between about 20,000 and 15,000 victim contacts a year. And that number actually went down last year because, like many other folks, we were struggling with being short-staffed. And we found that our cases are much more violent and more time intensive. So homicides, traffic fatalities, obviously, were also a record last year. So we're just finding that folks have greater needs. And obviously also gun violence has been tremendous. All right, moving right along. July is generally our busiest month. As you all can probably imagine, violence goes up during the summer, so we are usually busier then. We do use volunteers to go out on some of our lesser calls. So if it's, a simple assault or some domestic violence calls, sexual assault, suicides, that kind of thing. But we do have to have a staff member respond out on homicides, infant or child deaths, officer involved incidents, SWAT call out with hostages, and any other kind of mass shooting incident, obviously.
Can I ask you a question about volunteers?
Yes.
Do you have a profile like what I know people are willing to help clearly, but
Yeah.
beyond that, are there types of people you're looking for? So I just think if you need more people, that's something that if we had a way for people to say, hey, if you want to help with this program, sign up here and we can probably help with our own networks. I would
Yeah,
imagine.
thank you. That would be wonderful. On the city website, so on the police website, there's a victim services page and it has information on there. But we're also on the volunteer coordinator site for the entire city as well. So people can do it either way.
Okay.
But yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing. We used to have almost 30 volunteers, and
Is
unfortunately.
there a profile on there of kind of what you're looking for in terms of, background or what they would be responsible for?
Yeah, so I mean, really background of anything, right? But we do particularly would like folks that have, bilingual skills or multilingual skills would be amazing. We do have to obviously do a background check on those because folks are going into people's houses, that kind of thing. And then we have to complete a basic 40-hour training. So we just had our graduation last night of the newest volunteers. So, and that was amazing. The chief and Chief Hildebrand came to that. But yeah, so we are slowly but surely building up those ranks again.
You're
yeah.
10?
Yeah, about 10 active folks right now. So ideally we'd have about 20 more.
So again, kind of a minimum commitment, 10 hours a week. Obviously, we'll take as much time as they're willing to give. Again, I think what they're looking for is they
Right.
talk to citizens like, say, hey,
Yeah.
we've got, they don't want to tell them 10 hours. If you're like, oh no, if they can't give us 30 hours a week, so just those type things. Right?
Yeah, so we ask for a minimum of 24 hours of on-call. So they may or may not actually be coming out during those times. It obviously just depends on calls for service, but that's what we ask. And then generally no less than like a 6-hour shift, because as you can probably imagine, a fair amount of our call-outs take a fair amount of time. So we don't want people to have to leave in the middle of that. Yeah, and then reliable transportation as well, because they're actually responding out in their own vehicles. Yeah. Any other questions?
I just like to say, in the state, I know Lisa's program is the best. I mean, everybody models the VSU program that she established, and their call outs are substantially more because interpreting the Victims' Rights Act and what that requires, we ensure that we're meeting those requirements, whereas other cities are interpreting it a little bit differently. So they're very much overworked for the amount of call outs that they go on, the amount of victims that they end up touching on a daily basis. And I think the more volunteers we can get and the more diverse that group is, the more we can get victims and advocates that may be more aligned and can connect better on that personal level when they're dealing with trauma. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And just a 30,000-foot level view of the VRA on the Victims' Rights Act just says that victims have to be informed, present, and heard at all critical stages. So, whether that's the filing of charges or if the case is going to be inactivated, and then support during that. So interviews with detectives or at child advocacy centers like Sundberg for forensic interviews, that kind of thing. And thank you so much to City Council for the allotment of the $100,000 last year. That will be incredibly helpful to us. We spent almost $60,000 last year in victim assistance funds, and that was not enough. So I'm very confident that we will spend that money that you all gave to us. So thank you so much. And most of those are for our more critical cases like domestic violence, where people need to flee and have things for their children still and that kind of thing. So thank you so much. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that while for the Aurora Police Department, the VRA is in full effect and we adhere to that, in municipal court, they are not held to the Victims' Rights Act. They are encouraged to, but they do not have to under state law.
Madam Chair, real quick, based on that, there's a big push to have VRA apply to municipal court. Our city at any point in time can consider an ordinance to adopt a VRA. In fact, that's a proposal that's being floated right now as it relates to the domestic violence bill.
Would it be a benefit for us to do that?
Start that up. Start bringing forward an ordinance to adopt the rights.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do an analysis to what that would entail for both the court and our advocates and include that in the ordinance.
So let's get that done by,
Sorry, I meant the.
let's get that done by next month's public safety meeting. So it's
You
on
want to
that
go
agenda.
public safety?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it'll be on that agenda.
Even if that amendment
more work.
to the
We love
DD
you.
bill doesn't go forward, it would still, because that conversation's been going on at the Capitol for a while now. And even though we follow the spirit of the VRA as much as possible, the actual application of the VRA to municipal court is a topic of conversation that we have all the time down at the Capitol. So it'd be well worth it for the city to consider adopting Title 24, Article 4.1.
We'll have it on the agenda for April.
Thank you.
And if I may, please, along those lines as well, under state law, domestic violence offenders are not allowed to bond out prior to the issuance of a protection order. But in municipal court, they can. So oftentimes offenders are bonding out before officers are even done with their report, which it goes without saying is a tremendous safety issue for victims. And then a protection order is not issued until they have their initial appearance before the judge. And that can sometimes be days. Just things too. Yes.
So you and your staff here look to as comforters and counselors and experience some challenging things and conversations. What are some items that you might coach your staff about or even yourself to maintain some good mental health and not take things home with you?
Sure. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think with all first responders, that's an ongoing conversation and that might need to look different at different times, depending on what we're dealing with that in that moment. But all of us are engaged in regular psych services. We're very thankful to council and the department that we all have access to that. And we actually go on duty to those services just to make sure that we're continuing with our mental health and that kind of thing. But also scanning for the good, as one of our department psychologists says, because in our world, all teachers are offenders, all, fathers or whatever the case may be, because that's what we see in our police reports, right? Or all drunk drivers are killing people, but that's not reality. So we have to make sure that we're in both worlds, so to speak, and making sure that we're not enclosing our bubble too much, that we're not keeping in mind that there are many good humans in the world, even if we're not being exposed to them, if that makes sense. Yeah, but it is our horrible privilege. You know, Dr. Brower talks about that all the time, about how it's an honor to walk with folks as they go through what is often the hardest time in their life, right? And the vulnerability and trust that people put with us is amazing. So. Yes, we're right at 15 minutes, so I certainly want to be respectful of people's time. Any other questions, concerns?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to 4B, Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Just present generally.
Sure.
Then I'll-
So this is simply a replacement of one officer with another. This is Mark Lowitz, who was one of my intelligence officers, who promoted to detective and has moved out into the general detective population. So we brought in Randy Hansen, who is a seasoned detective, and we kind of renegotiated with the FBI for this next go around. So we've got Randy Hansen, who will be our full-time TFO task force officer. And then I've got my detective in the intelligence unit right now who focuses on bias motivated crime. So we'll be kind of an apprentice. So he'll be next in the wings, learning as he can learn. He won't be a full-time task force officer, but he'll be allowed access to training, maybe specific investigations, stuff like that. So I think we have a good plan for the future. This MOU calls for an agreement with the FBI for a minimum of 2 years. And that's always subject to unforeseen situations that may arise. So if something happens with Randy Hansen and you know, we need to make a change, then the FBI is going to be very open and receptive to that kind of thing. So, yeah.
I'll just add a little bit that's different from our prior agreements with the FBI on the Joint Terrorism Task Force. We did tweak the language. I did with their counsel just a little bit on the body worn camera expectations for task force officers that are cross-designated to make sure our policies are matching up and that our task force officers are able to follow the DOJ policy requirements. So this is substantially similar to our prior agreements with FBI as it relates to the JTTF, but that's really the primary change.
That was just informational.
I'm
Are
sorry.
we moving it forward or is it informational?
We're asking for council to move forward to study session to get the MOU executed and approved.
Okay. All right, so I'll move forward. So items 4C and 4I, I would like to come forward together.
4C through 4I.
4C through 4I.
Yeah, all of those.
Yeah, all of
Yes.
the amendments.
Agreed. Good morning.
I don't know if you were asked. You
Yes.
just-
Good morning, Council. Lieutenant Bennett. I'm the Traffic Section Commander for Aurora PD. 4C through 4I are amendments that to ordinance that allow us to move forward with the photo enforcement pilot project. It cleans up some old language. We already had this article in ordinance about the automated vehicle identification systems, but it was clunky language from the early double aughts. And so we need to clean it up to allow for like payment by website, which wasn't allowed in the existing ordinance. So we've updated that to allow for multiple methods of payment currently. One of the big steps forward, I think, is that the photo enforcement fines and notices of violation, penalty assessment notices, or what they're called in the new language, are much more like a parking ticket than they are a criminal ticket to court. And because Park Aurora and the Aurora Parking Bureau already has a magistrate system that would be perfect to handle this, we talked to Park Aurora and they said, yes, we'd be willing to take that on. So we are proposing this ordinance amendment to allow, if somebody wants to dispute their photo enforcement ticket, it would go to the parking magistrates instead of to municipal court. Municipal court would still be the ultimate appellate for those. But again, these are not a traditional ticket. There's no points assessed. We don't keep a record of it. It's like a parking ticket essentially. So it's much more aligned with a parking ticket than anything else. Also in the language, just the basic process of what happens when the notice of violation is generated, goes out to the person. They have the ability through due process to dispute that wasn't me driving. So we talk about that process. The process for, I just want to pay it now, or I want to request a hearing. And then when we can serve them personally with a notice, and how long we have before, if they do nothing, a default judgment is entered and they enter into collections. So that's the language that we've cleaned up in the proposed ordinances. And I believe that moving forward in East Gripe, it's been consolidated into a single ordinance.
So we will, if you all approve, which all of those, we will consolidate them into one ordinance and go to study session. So if you can just, for procedurally, you guys, you can ask if you're ready to move it forward, like we'll move it forward.
I think I would rather.
That really are a package. I don't think,
Yeah.
if you have questions about any part of it, we're happy to answer it, but really.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the big things was, we had the parking magistrate, but we're like, well, somebody's gonna be upset if we're gonna get a speeding citation via the mail, the civil citation. It's like, why am I going to the parking magistrate? So we had to go change it to parking and traffic magistrate. So there's a lot of that stuff cleaning up, as Lieutenant Bennett says, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
This might be for Judge Day. So if somebody gets a ticket and they're going 100 miles an hour through this system, it doesn't impact their points, nothing.
Yes, I can address that. So one of the updates is any violator that is found 25 miles an hour or more will instead be immediately referred to a police officer for follow-up investigation, and they'll actually go issue an actual ticket with the photo as evidence. So anything of that magnitude, we would not.
In nature.
Yeah. That's when they said the park is one of the big deterrents, of course, is your points, especially if you're younger and that kid or male, that can significantly impact not just the ticket, but your insurance rates and all that. So I hate to see that just be kind of a slap on the wrist, but that's good to hear. There's some threshold.
Yeah, that's specifically called out in one of the subsections as well as to that procedure now, so.
Okay, thank you.
What is the monetary fine and when is the system going to be rolled out?
So a general notice violation of fine is $40. In a school zone, it's $80. We are going to be receiving our vehicles at the end of March. We'll be doing our training and turning the system on, at least in a limited, we're calling it the warning period, for 30 days at the beginning of April, if all goes well with the supply chain. So it'll be beginning of April, and then beginning of May is when we'll be doing actual fine-based enforcement. So we'll have a 30-day period of time where we're going to put the vehicles out. We'll be learning, and we'll also be educating the public, and they're going to get a notice mailed to them that says, hey, if we were live, you'd be getting a ticket, but this is just a warning, please slow down.
How many units will we have staffed?
We authorized for 3, didn't we?
Yes, okay, yes, we'll have 3 vehicles when the system is fully operational. Okay,
Thank you.
And we really are gonna focus on school zones, elderly neighborhoods.
So state law very specifically limits where we're able to put these. The good news there is that means that we can take our actual officers, our motor officers and units, and put them on the busier streets. State law says we can put them into school zones regardless of the speed limit. We can put them into residential zones where the speed limit is 35 miles or less, 35 miles per hour or less. We can put them into work zones. So if Public Works has a project going, we can identify it ahead of time. We can put these to help improve the safety of the workers. And then we can put them into any street that borders a municipal park.
And real quick, I think just for council members, one of the things we've talked about is we know you all, one of the top concerns you often hear from your neighborhoods. So when those come in, we'll refer them over to our traffic unit that's kind of managing this. And if that neighborhood meets one of these criteria, we'll try and flag that for enforcement, so that we're being responsive to the community concern. So that's, again, part of the idea that if some of those, we hear high volume of complaint from certain neighborhoods, we can look to try and direct this to there if they meet those criteria laid out by.
Okay. I have a question that's related, but it's the radars that we put for the cars that we allocated. Is there an update on? I know that you're slowly making progress, but just curious.
So we've ordered the first batch. They're going into the first set of patrol cars. Those are moving radars, so you can see cars coming at you. I talked to Councilmember Jurinsky about it. That is older technology, the moving radar, and it's not something that, when talked to Chief Osovate about it, we would rather put the lasers in officers' hands so they could sit somewhere, shoot the laser at the car, and then go get it. Moving radar, you're constantly doing U-turns, and there's a tendency to have maybe more accidents to try to go track people down. We've ordered 30 additional lasers so far, and Lieutenant Bennett is putting on monthly laser training for officers, and generally getting 10 people or so signed up for each of those classes. And then when they graduate that class, we're actually going to put a laser in their hand, and they can keep it until they're no longer wanting to do laser. And then we're just going to keep that program going and train as many people as we can. So we're going to continue to buy those lasers. We're going to, at the council member's direction, we're going to start buying some additional of those "Your Speed Is" signs that we can put up in neighborhoods, which gives him a little bit better idea of what actual speeds are in neighborhoods. We generally try to send those out when we have complaints, and we try to go after that 85th percentile. And when we see it, gives us that data in the background to say, this is when we need to have the vehicle in this area. This is when we need to have our motor officers in this area. So we're going to try to buy a few more of those. So each district has one, and then the traffic bureau has additional.
Those signs actually capture the data. It's not just to kind of pay to pump the brakes. It actually gives us some sort of data.
Gives us a lot of data in the background. It tells us how many cars have traveled that area. We've over the years shared that data with Public Works. So they can look at it when they're getting requests for speed humps and traffic calming and stuff like that. We've got a general folder where we put all of that in. So yeah, we're going to try to buy more of those and put those out as well. Hopefully by the end of the year, our motorcycles, they need new lasers. We've got some new motorcycles coming in, so they need new moving radar, and this will help to encompass all of that and just keep on moving forward with it.
So I just want to make sure that we are going to have like a blend of the moving radars to the lasers, because my only concern is our officers that are on patrol, I mean, it's no secret, they're going from call to call to call. So, you know, do our patrol officers really have time to utilize the lasers and sit somewhere and park somewhere and be, you know, pointing the laser at somebody? Is that realistic to think that they have time to do that? I think what I liked about the moving radar is, like, I see it all the time. I'll be driving, and I'm a fairly fast driver. I'm not even going to deny it. I'm quite certain I'm going to get one of these. And it's not going to be, I don't speed enough to get points with the ticket, but I'm sure I'll pay $40 a time or two. But I'll be driving, and there's someone that just, I mean, they go 100 past me, you know? And so my concern is with the moving radar, if the cops had some of those in their car, I mean, yeah, they might have to flip around or whatever, but I mean, do what you have to do to go get that person. If we're waiting for them to get a laser in their hand, that car going 100 that just blew past me is gone. And so I
Well,
guess that's my concern.
If they're going the same direction, we can do a pace. We can always pace them, and you don't need anything. The vehicle pacing, we could pace them. It's the ones that are coming at you. So then when they're coming at you, now you have to go down, you got to try to find that place where you can turn around and then go chase them down. And a lot of times it's a little harder. Not impossible, but a little harder. We are going to have a flavor of those out there.
Okay.
I was going to try to put those in some of our park cars. So when those bar officers are out and about, they can do that. The problem is it's about $5,000 per to move these radars around constantly, and we're trying to rotate some of those cars out of par and into patrol and trying to.
I just don't want wasted money. I mean, our officers right now on patrol are going from call to call to call. So I don't want to waste a whole bunch of money on lasers thinking that they're going to have time to sit around and, you know, run traffic. That's my concern. Whereas the moving one, they can be driving to a call, and if someone flies by them, it's flagged and they can go off. That's my own, I just want to make sure that we have,
There'll be a flavor.
that it's realistic.
Yeah, there'll be a flavor of them out there, and I'll bring it back to Chief Acevedo to make sure that he's comfortable with adding more of those 2 cars. We can definitely add more, and we're trying to do it as the cars come in, so as they're being built. they're part of the cost of being built instead of bringing them offline and paying the vendor another $5,000 just to install these systems in the car. So I'll revisit that with Chief Azevedo to see if every new car, if he wants one in. But we found that the lasers, there's generally time to, in a shift, everybody finds their place to sit and write some tickets.
Right, I hope so. I hope so. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Uh-huh.
One of the things that I know that the municipal court has brought to light about the police is when we're dealing with speeding citations, sometimes there's a lot of, just to bring it up, that a lot of street dealing, right? They're riding less speed and doing this sort of, so we'd like, with the municipal courts, when they're doing it, we just want to make it clear that if they stop them for 25 over, they need to ride them for 25 over, right? Is that the direction of council? Is that, you want to be enforcing the speed limits, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Make sure
We
we.
even need to be aware of it.
We pass that.
She drives with purpose.
Well,
it continues to happen. That's
I
why.
think they're on purpose, Stephen. Okay, is there anything else for this?
No, Chair. One thing for the laser radar from a training perspective, it's the exact same training. So there's no magic, if we don't get them lasers, they can automatically use the radar. They go through the exact same training process
Okay.
to use both. So it doesn't, from an administrative perspective, that doesn't change.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I would like to move it forward as one ordinance. So that's the direction.
And on the photo radar stuff, just so you know, we just found out last week that there's some supply chain issues with the specific cameras that are being used. So they're gonna pull a car off of line out of another city to send to us to try to help us with the initial part, and then bring one back in on the back end. But they're running into supply chain issues with the cameras that are used in these photo cars. So we're gonna be at their mercy. So if we only get 2 cars and then we might get a car in 3 months again, we're just gonna be at their mercy. Hopefully they'll all come at the same time.
Sure, just to let you know that the way it's being proposed is it'll go to the magistrate traffic officer, and then the municipal court will be the appellate place. Court. When it comes to the municipal court, it's a de novo review, which means it starts over from the very beginning. You'll have a full trial in the court, so there'll be the time necessary that we'll have to make for those slots, those review slots, those appellate review slots within the docket. So we've had discussions with it. We know it's coming, but we have the slots, I think, available.
And this would come about as if somebody appealed their ticket.
Right after they go see the magistrate.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to item 4J, the public safety action plan update.
Thank you, ma'am. This is the monthly update. So section 1 refers to the staffing, so you kind of see where those are in terms of both the specialty units and our folks moving through the academy. I will note that these are numbers sort of through February. Just this week, we've started a new shift bid, so that's going to shift some of these. So we've, for patrol, shifted to a 12-hour shift. So that's going to change some of our numbers here. 12-hour shifts are a little more efficient in terms of covering the needed staffing. So we can do some of the same coverage levels with more efficiently. So that provides more officers available for some of these units. So you're going to see hopefully some of these numbers change as we implement the 12-hour shift.
So how do we have 7 vacancies in traffic, but we're fully staffed at 7?
I just noticed that myself, and I believe
Oh.
that's a typo.
Oh,
We
okay.
have 0 detective vacancies right now.
Great, I'm after the speed.
Yeah, that'd be on me. But my apologies. We have 0.
So any questions on the first part? Okay. Second part is referring to our overall data collection and that. So you kind of see our on section 2, you see our numbers. Our overall crime trend numbers have continued to do. We've started off the year very strongly. So we're pleased with that. Overall, the numbers remain way too high. Any crime is too much crime. We understand that. but they are trending in the right direction. And so the department continues to work very diligently to address those. So any questions on those numbers? Keep going down. It's next section.
Just a real quick question related to the last topic.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Motorcycle cops.
Yeah.
I haven't really been seeing them out and about. Are they cold out there? Oh, it's too
It's
cold.
winter.
Cold? Oh, yes.
So, yeah, you won't see a lot.
I should toughen up though.
Quote him. Quote him.
We need a ride.
Mind yourself.
Motorcycle out there with it.
Your moped.
Okay.
You go out
The,
there.
Noted.
The snow and the gravel on the roads that
Okay.
impedes what they do a little bit on motorcycles. They're out there. They're just out in cars.
Okay, thank you very much.
They go out in unmarked cars. They just start out on their motorcycles. As the weather gets nicer, you'll start seeing them more.
And please tell the traffic cops I thank them for their service.
Me too.
So now, sorry.
Thank
thanks,
you,
Matt.
thank you.
Good. So these are our crime data here. So you kind of see we've had a 4-week period over. We've had a little uptick over that 4-week period, but again, year to date, we're continuing to see overall those numbers we're seeing those numbers trending in the right direction. So we are again happy to see those numbers trending. We know we got to continue that work, and as I said, any crime is too much crime, but we're pushing them in the right direction. So from other piece of that, you kind of see some update here that we've got our newest crime analyst there. The department continues to work very heavily on making sure we've got the data. And then Reagan, I'll let you talk a little bit about we've got a notice here on the police transparency proposal. So we've working to push more data out for the public. So Reagan, we'll talk a little bit about that.
So we've been working with IT for a while now to, actually prior to the consent decree, monitors group recommended we do a transparency portal that'll show any number of, it'll just be very easily accessible, not only mapping, but when you all need things, we're going to try and put it in your wards so that you can capture data and refer your constituents very easily to anything that they need, basically. And so it's a work in progress, but we're waiting for a modified scope of work. Esri, I think, already works with IT, and so they felt most comfortable going with them because they already have back-end access to a lot of our different IT assets. So I'm not sure when we're going to get it, but we're hoping in the next month or so.
So at least start rolling it out. It'll be a phased rollout. Esri is the premier geographic information system provider nationwide. So we already have good relationships with them. They're the back end for all of our GIS systems. And then, as Reagan said, so they've already got that access. And then the other thing is that they've done this in other jurisdictions. And so we're hoping that it's a pretty quick lift on their point. We just can point to this city and say, we want that, make it look like, San Mateo, make it look like Austin, make it look like, these different cities. And so we're once we roll that out, we'll come back and demonstrate it for you all. It's going to be hopefully, again, a lot of information. We want to put it out there for you all, put it out there for our citizens, and just, kind of make sure that we're being as transparent as possible.
Okay.
Right. Going on to section 3. This is looking at our youth violence updates. So you can kind of see some of those numbers here. Joseph, I'll turn it over to you and see other updates. And then obviously we had a couple updates in study session as well in terms of that. So
Yep, yeah, absolutely. The biggest update, we now have Austin here as our data analyst. He started last week. He's already started digging in with a lot of data with school districts, with police. He's partnering very closely with our crime analysts over there. And then we've got some stuff that we'll be sharing with you all in more of a more succinct data version. And then, of course, NOFO grants are live. They will be live through March 31st. And let's see. I have my coordinator starting on March 27th as well, so we'll have some more boots on the ground folks really working in the community.
And are we, have you guys had a conversation, have you had a conversation with Judge Day about the April 5th? Okay, because I plan to be at that.
Sure. Yep, and we're actually meeting to discuss it further.
Oh, fabulous.
We do, yeah.
We are on
Fabulous.
it.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, and all of our YVPP partners will be invited to this?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, absolutely,
perfect.
absolutely. And that's all on my side.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Status of ink grip?
How's that coming along?
So the restructuring and overhaul of the youth violence prevention program took into account the previous AGRIP program and also the assessments that were done through PSP. And so some of the changes and things you're seeing with the program are related to that. So I think it's kind of overhaul of the youth violence prevention program, a much stronger collaboration with the police department. And then a lot of the other things you're seeing as changes are addressing the what was AGRIP and then where we are going. So we're not creating another program. We've just restructured, revamped, done the assessments, and then retooled the youth violence prevention program. Thank you.
So the fourth section is looking at the Aurora Crisis Response Team. And so, go ahead, sir. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Graham with Crisis Response Team. So Courtney sent me some notes so you guys. Last week we held our clinician academy. So all the clinicians were there, and on Thursday our officers, our CRT officers joined the clinicians. So they all got a day of training together plus the 40 hours for the clinicians there. So they got stuff on risk assessment, safety planning, and physical safety. So they're learning the mindset of the officers as well as bringing the clinician side to that to the officers as well. A great collaborative effort there. We have our second interview with our AMRT, our second AMRT clinician today. So that's the last hire we need to make for the unit to become whole. So otherwise, everybody is up and running and doing well. And then the clinicians are doing a good job in the field out there. I've been out there, I've seen some of them. They've had some of our high utilizers that we're getting contact with, offer them services and reduce the utilization they're using for calling 911, reporting to whoever they're reporting to and getting that stuff. They had one gal that she's been a problem for years. The clinician went out there. She was able to talk her into going to the hospital and get her into some inpatient therapy. We haven't heard from her since. So they have some great successes.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, the only one, scroll up, yeah, you can kind of see it there. The other one I'll just highlight there for you is that follow-ups by the case manager. That's really critical. Again, that's not just the incident in the field. It's like Sergeant Graham was saying, we're continuing to follow up because we don't want them coming back into the system. So this is a heavy lift, but our folks are lined up. And
even if our officers do a mental health report out there, whether they do a protective custody, take them on an M1, or if it's just something where the family's having problems, we route all those through our clinicians and our managers there, and they will assign, or they'll either try and do the follow-up and officer services and make sure they're dealing with that, or we'll send out a clinician and an officer team to go out and follow up with them and try to provide them with stuff.
I have one thing I'd like to say. I went on a ride along, I don't know, this was a week, 10 days ago or something, and it was a domestic violence call that we responded to. And I was talking to these officers. The woman was going to be homeless, boyfriend was throwing her out, whatever the situation was. And she had a lot of stuff in her car. So, I mean, it did look to me like with him throwing her out, she was going to be homeless in her car. So I just had said to the officers, why don't we call Comitis and see, I mean, we give Comitis a lot of money every year. I said, why don't we call Comitis and see if we can't get a bed? And there was about 5 officers and all of them said, oh, they don't give us beds, or they don't. So I was really alarmed by that. I mean, we give them a lot of money to be a city partner. So if that's true, I would like to know that. I ended up calling over there myself, and I understand it's a different impact because I called and I was able to get this woman a bed. But if that's true, I would like to know that.
There's bed space available. I understand. I don't know how many we have.
I'm in a budget because in that instance, we should be contacting Gateway Domestic Violence and getting them to the shelter rather than to Comitis so that they get the services that they need.
So then there's a big lack of communication because I talked to all of these officers. I said, we cannot just leave this. I cannot. I will have to sit with this woman, and not one of them knew about Gateway Domestic Violence. So there's a big disconnect, and I saw this firsthand trying to deal with this domestic violence victim.
I would be happy to schedule a training with officers to have Gateway come in and just do a training about how to make referrals. Or I could do a training about homelessness in general and about who to refer where.
I think that would be fabulous.
Folks, if I may, This is actually our lane. That's exactly where we would come into play. So we can not only get folks hooked up with shelter like Gateway or even out of town, because often our Metro Denver shelters are full. So just the other day, we drove someone up to a shelter all the way up in Longmont because there was no space here. So that's absolutely a call that we should have been contacted on, because not only can we do shelter, but we can also do a hotel and temporary.
And
So
that's my point, is that there's
Yeah.
a massive disconnect with
Sure.
our officers that are on the street, our patrol
Yeah.
officers. I mean, we all kind of stood around. They did not know who to call.
Well,
They
that's
didn't know, and I
very
didn't know.
disappointing.
I didn't know either.
Yeah,
But I just knew that I wasn't leaving this woman.
Sure.
So,
sure.
We will get an email out today from Lisa's staff to address
Yeah.
specifically
and
this.
to be fair, they wanted to be helpful. I mean, they wanted to be helpful. These cops they did a wonderful job. They wanted to be helpful. They had no idea who to call to help this woman.
We'll put together an information, whether it's in an email, whether it's in a briefing, page to do it at briefings. We've got this one on our to-do list. We'll follow up on
Thank you.
it with Jessica's team as well.
Thank you.
Along the lines of knowing of resources, and I know this is kind of rare, but if someone out there actually did want rehabilitation services or detox, who do we refer them to?
If they're a victim of crime, we can absolutely help to facilitate that, but if it's more of just a mental health
It's a
issue.
mental health thing. We have a
Yeah.
whole list of resources that's available to them, not just here in Aurora.
What are just a couple that come to mind?
I'm sorry?
What are a couple that come to mind that an officer would say?
Well, obviously, if they're homeless, we have the Aurora Day Resource Center with Ms. Knight and her crew over there, and then Comitas is associated with that. If we have detox, we still have the detox center down in South Potomac, and then there's some other longer term care programs for that.
What's the name of the one on South Potomac?
It's run by Aurora Mental Health, so I don't know exactly.
We call it the detox center.
Try
Yeah,
your
so
Okay.
It's more for acute, if we've got somebody who's highly intoxicated, inebriated, that's where we can take them so that they can, because we can't safely put them into custody because our jail's not necessarily, or detention center's not necessarily set up for it, so we'll take them on that. But then once they're there, they can then try and hook them up again if they want help for a longer term.
Or if their blood alcohol content's too high at the time, they go to the hospital.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up to staffing, it sounds like the partnership with UC Health has been more beneficial than Aurora Mental Health, getting you clinicians.
Yes, we've, actually, even UC Health is surprised we were able to hire so many so fast.
Great.
And everyone's doing great. Everyone's working well together right now. We've been meeting with them weekly, talking about staffing. That's going to bi-weekly now because we've got everyone hired except for that A&P clinician. So we'll just revisit that every other week. There's a few issues that come up from time to time, but the meetings are getting shorter and shorter. So the partnership has been great.
That's great. Sounds like a night and day issue.
Just, I don't know, somebody from the litigation side, there was a story, it wasn't that long ago, about the fact that we had zero, right, and the clinicians, they actually interviewed me about it, because it was in this plan. I think it would be worthwhile to do something proactively to get some positive news about what we're doing on that.
Nick from the chief's office rode with us yesterday, got some video of the clinicians and officers going out some calls.
Yeah.
So he's going to continue to build on that a little bit, and do a little bit of background with him and stuff. I'm not sure exactly where he's going with the story.
Who is it?
We're doing a media campaign in April. We're waiting for them to get all their uniforms,
Okay,
or
great.
get some
That's
B-roll,
good, yeah.
and communications
There's
has
some things
all
to
that
look
under
for.
control, but
Perfect.
we're gonna do a big push in April is when it.
Yeah, so
That's good to hear.
speaking bluntly, we've staffed up in the chief's office in terms of, sometimes it's, frankly, we didn't want to be at the whim of whether or not we could break through the media, willingness to do it. Sometimes if it's a good news story, you have a tough time getting that through. So we've actually staffed up, our own videographer and other folks so that we can proactively put out our message. Hopefully they will pick that up. If they don't, we'll use our own channels to put that out.
Yes, and we did actually go out when they were doing their clinician training, just to sort of, lead up to the big April launch to talk about it, because to your point, we got a lot of negative press over not having clinicians. And we're also, at your request, we're putting something out on the targeted violence prevention. You guys brought that up last month, and so that's actually going out tomorrow, I believe.
That's great.
And if you guys need any help with the media getting us out, if you guys get any pushback, please reach out to us.
When
Please reach out.
when we get that April campaign going, we'll give you guys a heads up and you can
Yeah,
help.
the media's pretty interested, so I'm hopeful
Oh,
they'll
good,
pick this one
good,
up for sure.
Good.
I'll let you know, we don't need any more business.
Perfect. All right.
So that was, item, 4, and then finally, the 5th item is our, homeless camp, abatements, and so,
Yeah, and first of all, I apologize. I forgot to switch that January to February. These are the correct numbers for
Okay.
February, though. And as far as updates go, I'm still working on hiring an additional abatement liaison. We did do some interviews, and none of the candidates we had really met what we were looking for. So, but I've gotten a lot more applicants since then. So I'm hoping this next pool will be good. So hopefully we'll have a new person or second person hired by the end of March, if not early April. It's really my only update. I'm gonna start adding some more numbers to these so that you can see how many folks are accepting shelter, as well as what our major problem areas are for the month.
So, I think it just one of the biggest concerns and what we hear the most from our constituents is along 225, obviously, you know, at Parker Road, at
Yeah.
Iliff, all of those. How can we be more proactive about that? How can we, what can we do?
We do go out there every week and post camps every week, I would say. It is a weekly abatement that we're taking care of, but there's no length of time that folks have to stay away. So like once the camp's abated, they could come back that same night and set up again.
So do we need to strengthen our ordinance?
That might need to be something that would happen.
Yeah, I wanna
for
work on that.
But and as far, it's also a complicated area.
Well, when's it coming?
We're working on it.
What does working on it mean?
Legal has studied some other cities in which they have created something called an emphasis area or a closed to camping after they've abated it.
Okay,
And so that'll have some more teeth.
so like if they come
That's what we
back immediately, they would be
heard it
trespassed or something?
Correct,
They
there's,
close the area off, and it's an area closed type of sign. That area is also complicated with all the different entities coming together. So last week we were able to connect with Arapahoe County. They hadn't been doing abatements, and then what happened on Friday when you emailed and you're like, what is happening? We heard a couple that, but the rangers on the Cherry Creek side had abated folks, but not collaborated with us and communicated with us. So it just pushed people out. And so we're having that kind of constant collaboration struggle with all the other entities that are in there. There's Army Corps of Engineers, the county, there's Cherry Creek, CDOT, Denver, Aurora. And so we're trying our best to collaborate with those. It's a very challenging area from a geographic.
Well, and the reason that I finally emailed you, so that must have happened is the Rangers must have abated and pushed them out. So they are
Right after
now
we-
over there at Parker 225, they're now putting their stuff in the street. I mean, in the street, they're putting their stuff. So I drove down, one lane was blocked off, there was a toilet and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, I am done with Parker 225. So is this coming to
So-
start to next month's public safety?
so let me kind of, as you know, with everybody across the states, across the country, have been doing camping bans and so forth, there's a lot of litigation out there. So we are trying to figure out what we can do here in Aurora. I know George Klumatakis, one of my fellow managers, and Tim Joyce, one of his lawyers, are working on that to try to figure out what we can do. So I'd like for it to be able to come in April. I just don't know because there's a lot of case law out there that we've got to dive through because we don't want to set ourselves up to get sued immediately.
Okay.
And those enforcement areas, the ones that you're talking about, the 225, that's where you get into this multi-jurisdictional
Right,
stuff.
I
where
know.
we can't just say it's gonna be an enforcement area.
I will
We
say,
have
if
to do something.
folks are in the street, we don't have to post or wait 24 hours. That's an emergency and we can get those. If they're literally in the street, we can get them out of there
Oh,
immediately.
they were. I mean,
Yeah, we
their
just need to know.
stuff was in the street.
We just need to know about that and then we can take care of that immediately. So that's the kind of thing where please reach out if you see that.
I do.
Like reach out immediately because that's a safety issue for everyone, of course.
Okay. Perfect.
that's all on the agenda. So anything else for us next month or, so we've got,
Well, so for miscellaneous matters for consideration, we have a lot of fire in the room and it seems like we don't ever hear from them. I want to hear from you guys. Are we ready? You know, Chief Otten is coming. I believe we're swearing him in Monday night. What's going on in fire? Anything you guys want to bring up that that's aware of? Are we ready for Chief Otten? What does this transition look like?
We are ready with Chief Otten. I speak with him frequently, even more frequently now that it's ramping up. So he's eager and excited to get here. Really what's going on with fire is, you see our attrition data. Acting Deputy Chief Hayes and his team has done a very good job with, making our training academy super efficient. I think it's the most efficient it's been in decades. And we're gonna put out 21 people in the next 10 days. So the fire department will be fully staffed on the street, which is different than we having fully staffed and some in the academy. So we're really excited about that. We also have, with your help with the amendments the resolutions you've already passed and some help that you gave us Monday, we are able to mentor through the new academies and the new cadets. And Sherry Jo Stoll and her team are putting together what we call field days. And so we had some issues with the last few academies where people get into the academy and they say, well, this ain't what I thought it was. So these field days, people will actually get to come out. Once they put it in an interest card, they can come out to the academy, they can put on the equipment, they can see what exactly academy life is gonna be like, what fire life is gonna be like. You may be able to run up 5 flights of stairs. I see people doing it in this building all the time. But you toss on 67 pounds of awkward gear and run up 5 flights of stairs. It's a little different. So they'll get a very detailed view of what being a firefighter is. And that's really gonna revolutionize how we get people into the organization and making sure we get the right people in the organization. So
Well, congratulations on being fully staffed on the street. That's awesome to hear. That's a fabulous.
They've done well, actually, and you guys are gonna be overstaffed a little even?
Okay, we're gonna be overstaffed a little bit.
I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much, and we're excited.
You're leaving that legacy for us being overstaffed.
That's right.
Thank you for all your service.
Yeah.
Holding the helm.
That is under your watch, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your support.
Yeah.
It really means a
Thank
lot.
you. Thank you. Any other questions?
I wanted to know about the progress of e-discovery. Moving us out of the Stone Age
Here we are.
and into the 21st century.
So ready.
Still here.
Yes, we are still. We are continuing to work through the contract. We're hoping to be able to bring that forward to the next study session. The vendor has all of the questions from IT right now and proving the security interests for the city. So we're hoping to get that contract before you and then get moving on the actual progress.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any feedback or special requests from your leadership perspectives?
It's a daily issue.
Being polite, I think what we've heard is get it done yesterday.
Okay.
From Julie, from Judge Day, from Candace, I think the answer we're hearing is get it done yesterday. So it is a priority and we are handling it.
You sure we don't need a consultant?
Oh, gosh.
Sorry.
So to confirm next month's meeting, are we April 6th or are we April 13th?
I think it's the 13th, yes, ma'am.
Well, I have to make a special announcement. That is Steve Sundberg's birthday.
Oh, God bless you.
So next month's Public Safety Committee meeting, April 13th is.
Cake or pie,
We
yeah.
need to stop. So, okay, 9 a.m., April.
Oh, it's Jaz's
13th.
birthday too.
Is it really?
It's my birthday too.
Birthday party.
Oh, my gosh.
Donuts? We will, yes, we will.
Okay. I mean, yeah. No.
It is
It is now.
All right, well, April 13th, 9 a.m. here. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Still done by 10 a.m.
Are you?
Whoa.
9:59.
Sit.